Hello, I'm here today on the 12th of May with my mother, Donna DiPietro. It is Mother's Day, and I have some questions that I would like to pose to her. The first question, do you recall the first time that you had a psychic experience? How old were you? Do you remember the details? Please share.
Well, thank you for asking me these questions. I really am very honored that people are interested in what I have to say.
Well, I'm interested.
Okay. The first psychic experience that I remember is when I envisioned the heads and faces of angel-like beings around the ceiling in my living room when I was about 4 years old. They would only appear when I was alone, and I was never afraid. They were comforting and loving and seemed to watch over me. As a child, I might have had more psychic experiences than I remember because I was just too young. But the ones that I do remember were memorable because most of them involved other family members or people who saw me as a center of what was happening. For instance, when I was 8 years old, a light followed me for about 5 days and made appearances both when I was alone and when others were with me. The light seemed to be an intelligent being and traveled on its own while examining objects in the house. My father, sister, and brother saw the light around me. When I was about the same age, I made a dodgeball move a few times, apparently on its own, by using my thoughts. This was witnessed by a friend who was astonished and asked me how I was able to do that. I was somewhat frightened and decided that since I didn't understand what I was doing, I had better not try to move the ball again. My sister, who was 10 years older than me, told me a few years ago that when I was a child, I would say things that no one could possibly know. She never talked about it at the time because she didn't want to frighten me. I didn't seem to have many psychic experiences as a teenager and only remember predicting the death of a schoolmate's father on the day before it happened. I think that being in school all day and working each afternoon after school and on Saturdays, along with my homework, studies, and practicing the piano, and the general stress of the teen years kept my mind on other things, and it wasn't free to explore the unknown.
Wow. Well, was there a time in your life when you can recall having more experiences or fewer experiences, or has your psychic ability remained pretty much at the same level consistently over the past, over your lifetime?
Well, when I was about 22, I started working at New England Conservatory of Music, and that is when I began experiencing great psychic abilities. I think it was because I was around many people each workday, students, faculty, staff. They were open-minded and very interested in what I was capable of doing. This made me more comfortable in expressing my gift, but at the same time, I didn't understand it, and I used it more for entertaining people. Before working at the conservatory, I worked in an insurance office, which was very sterile and confining, and not a place where you could express your thoughts throughout the day. At the conservatory, I had control over my work schedule and had my own office. In my 30s and 40s, I worked in another sterile and confining environment, so I didn't use my abilities that often, as I had no control over my work and I was bringing up my family. But when I was around other people, such as at wedding receptions, I would be asked to use my psychic abilities, and it proved to be very strong. In my 50s, I started working in real estate offices, and since then, my psychic abilities have strengthened tremendously. This is because I have more control over my work environment. There are many people around, and the agents are greatly interested in my abilities and often ask for my help. Help that no one else that they know can provide. I did work in law offices, but the work environment was much too restrictive for me. I also worked as an office manager in a synagogue, but I had to keep my psychic abilities under wraps out of respect for their religious beliefs and it being their house of God. When I left, I could not give the real reason.
Would you say that there was ever anything going on in your life that had an effect to increase or decrease your psychic experiences or ability?
Well, I think, yes, working in a sterile environment with narrow-minded people and my having no control,
Oh, wow.
I can't use, I'm really, it's almost like I'm not allowed to use my psychic ability.
Right. Well, similarly, have you ever noticed anything that you can do that you have control over, say, to increase or decrease your sensitivity to receiving information psychically?
Well, I notice that when I am in a happy and relaxed state of mind, my psychic ability is
Would you say heightened?
very heightened, yes, very heightened.
Okay. And you once mentioned having a heightened sense when you're around many people. Would you say that's true?
Yes, the more the merrier. I think this is because at least half of them will are open-minded and interested in my psychic abilities.
And so when you receive information psychically, would you say it comes to you like a regular thought? And if so, can you tell the difference between psychic information versus your thoughts, or is that not always clear? Also, this is kind of a multi-part question. Do you actually see a picture or words within your mind, or do you simply have the thought with no imagery associated with it? Can you explain that?
Yes, the psychic information that I receive is completely different from my thoughts. My everyday thoughts are centered in my head, similar to a calculator, meaning that when you are using an actual calculator, it is being used for one thing only, and that is math, so it is confined within one area. So in other words, if I were home by myself, I'd be thinking about, oh, I think I better wash the floors today. I haven't washed them for 2 weeks,
Oh.
or that type of thing. Or I think I'll go for a walk, or I think I'll go to the store. So I'm not really thinking about psychic things. You know, it's more just relaxing, everyday things. When I use my psychic abilities, I see visions in a different part of my mind, in my forehead, in the top front of my head. Also, my spirit awakens, and I am able to go into other dimensions. When I am looking at the past, the future, or finding lost objects and using telepathy, I see pictures and words as though I am looking at a screen. The screen seems to be inside my forehead area. I guess maybe you'd call that the third eye. Also, thoughts and images often come from out of the air, from other dimensions, as though I am given information from others who are close by. So if someone asks me something, I often give an answer as though someone else is talking. And I have no idea where I'm getting the information. It just comes to me like out of nowhere. Mediumship is different, as I see the person differently. They are not on a screen, but they are real, as though the person has stepped from their dimension into mine for a visit. They are a real person, and I see them as they looked when they were alive. They can only stay a short time and must go back to their dimension. If they have already passed through the light, but if the person has not yet passed through the light and has been staying here, then after our meeting, I will guide them to the light, and most will pass through. There are a few who are hesitant to pass through the light because they don't want to leave. Sometimes spirits are seen as a condensed shadow in human form, or as a grayish white mist that forms into a human.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. And this has been a case study of a psychic, so thank you. Do you have any last words you'd like to say to
All I can
anyone
say
listening?
is we went to Louisa May Alcott's house today, and that's where I wanted to go for Mother's Day. So Alicia and Jessica and I, we had a wonderful time. And the strange thing is, if anyone knows about Louisa, she had this pillow in the living room, and she had fits of moodiness and depression. And if she were in a bad mood, or she wanted to write something and go to a room and close herself in, she would take the pillow, her own pillow that she had, it's a fancy pillow on the couch down in the living room, and she would push it over so it would fall. So if people came to visit, they could look in the window and see the pillow was like lying down flat instead of standing up, and they would know not to come and visit that day. So when we went there, I asked the young ladies at the front desk if anything strange had happened today, and they said yes. As a matter of fact, her pillow out of nowhere had fallen, and it was lying on its side, which means she was in a bad mood or she was busy writing. And I said, well, how many times has this happened? And they said, it's never happened. So when I went there today, I asked if I were able to touch the pillow. Of course, no one should touch the pillow, but they allowed me to touch the pillow, which was very nice of them. And also some other strange things have happened in the last few weeks, too, at the house in Concord. So,
Well, thank you. That is very interesting.
I know.
And it was the day that you were going there. And yes, any other times that we've been there, the pillow was upright.
Yeah.
So very strange.
I know, it was very nice, though. We had a nice time.
We did. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Signing off.
Okay, good night, everyone.